And welcome everyone to the episode 7 of the Slow Spin Society podcast. I am your usual co-host Paul, and as always, I am with your other co-host Fabian. Hello, Fabian.
Hi, everyone.
And today we are so pumped to have an awesome guest on the show. Welcome, Aaron.
Hello.
So most people will probably know you as AARN, I guess. Instagram and your chain rings, but yeah, Aaron.
Yeah.
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, and I like in the pre-show we had mentioned for a second because you're like, oh, Aaron or whatever, and so like I guess I always kind of thought they were both Aaron, but like everyone just kind of says it however they want. So it's like, but I have friends here like in real life in my circles that call me Arn, but it's kind of like I feel like with them it's kind of like a jokey thing. I've never really addressed how to say it, but I always just kind of thought it was like so I was like writing an email like 20 years ago and I misspelled my own name, and then and then I made that like super leet, and I was like, okay, it's 44RN, and then,
I remember high school.
Yeah. And then there was another person in the bike scene who kindly offered to sue me as part of a cease and desist for using part of that. So I changed my name I changed what I put on products in like 2012 or 2013. So I think that there was actually the first version of the chainrings I think had a 44 on them.
Okay.
So
Oh,
yeah,
good fact.
that's like really a long time ago.
Something to look up for you, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. Don't tell.
Well, I think I have one with the 44 on it.
Oh shit. Okay.
And by the way, talking about the pre-show, if you guys want to learn more about personal business goal, Taiwanese manufacturing, or even Silly's own customer service, then you should definitely check out the pre-show and the aftershow. You can access the extended cut of the podcast by pledging at any level on our Patreon. This will give you around 40 minutes of extra content every week, but more on that later.
Yeah, we need to put a disclaimer in there that these opinions are our own.
They do not reflect anything about Aaron. It's just jokes.
No.
Just banter.
Some morsels of trash talking.
Okay, so yeah, to carry on, a small introduction about yourself. So most people, like we said, you're known in the fixed community for your chain rings mainly, but you also, like you said, you do other things as well, business-wise and manufacturing-wise, right? Can you say more about that?
Yeah, so I guess my background is in electrical and mechanical engineering. And so like I moved from the Twin Cities, so like Minnesota, out to Boston like 2002, and then kind of like towards the end of when I like finished up college, like around 2008 or something like that, I started getting in with a bunch of bike kids, or in 2006, I guess. Yeah, and so I just kind of like, I don't know, my background's in engineering, so a lot of the things that I do are, kind of developed from the ground up. So I guess my main interests right now are always kind of like, it's like bikes, eyewear, food, and then kind of like other things that like spark my interest. So
yeah, it's a good combination. So
bikes and foods usually go really well together.
Yeah, but like if like because we're kind of at the tail end, hopefully, of the pandemic, it's like not having enough biking but having too much food is not a good balance.
I agree.
So definitely feeling that a little bit.
Yeah, need to restore the balance, right?
Right.
But eventually, but yeah, that's a cool like lineup though, because most eyewear, I saw some of the glasses, the frames you make, and they look good as well. So it's the rings and the eyewear, it's a good combination, I think, as well then.
Thanks. Yeah.
You work with Estate, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of like I was working as like as a contractor with like one of the last eyewear factories in the U.S. In like 2010, and they were only doing metal. And I also at the same time, or 2009, somebody gave me like my first pair of like really nice acetate sunglasses, like Supers. I don't know if you know those, but and I was just kind of like, oh, how do these things go together? Like, there's no like artifacts of manufacturing on them. They're just these like totally smooth, crazy things that are like, they're formed in all these ways and they're really complex. And so I decided I was going to start kind of like noodling around and, try and make a pair. And then I just started to get like really into it. And it kind of just always been something in the back end that I've done just on my own. Just kind of to have something else. Like I always think about it as like my like strip built canoe. It's like you have those like old guys that in the garage, they have like a canoe that they've been making for like the last 30 years. And it's all like individual little strips of wood that they're like laying up together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't really put a ton of pressure on myself to do a lot of craziness with it. Like I do because I'm a crazy person, but like, it's kind of one of those things where like every so often I have to remind myself that like, this is something I do like a little bit for my like mental health and to get my like passion stuff out. Cause like, it's like a lot of us have to do a lot of things that are not like super glorious.
No.
To like keep a roof over our heads, so it's like to have that thing that like is only on your own schedule and timeline and like, or it's the same thing, but it's only, you're in control of everything that happens with it. And, you can just like work on it and take your time and really kind of like solve problems the right way and not feel rushed and not feel like, like you're doing something for a customer or a client. And like, I think that's like the way that I would love to work on everything, but it's a luxury that not everyone can afford, and I can't afford on most fronts, so, it's just, I don't know. It's just a thing.
The benefit of being like an independent manufacturer is that you can set your own goals, your own ambitions without having to ask for permission first from anyone, right? So, and then
there's also kind of like, in terms of like if I was totally supported by my own endeavors, like, because there are long periods of time where I have been, it's like you get to like take that long lunch sometimes, or like, be like, hey, you know what, today's not happening, like, and like that's kind of like, that's my favorite part about kind of like working for yourself, is being able to like have the freedom to do that. Like, not saying that I probably took more vacation when I worked for other people than I did when I worked for myself, so, but like, that's kind of the part of the dream is to, be able to have that flexibility, because a lot of things that we do, I feel like, are narratives in our mind where you like have a narrative about like who you are and what you do. It's like, you're like, oh, Paul and France and ride a fixie, it's like, and like you have this narrative, and if someone's like, hey, do you ride a road bike? And you're like, no, I'm Paul and I ride a fixie. It's you're like, you have this narrative. And so like a lot of things, it's like you can use those for like self-actualization, to like become something that you want to be or aspire to be, but I think these narratives in the back of our minds are kind of like driving a lot of things, and they let us kind of like feel comfortable with whatever is going on at the time, especially like in the last year that we've all been kind of cooped up, it's like narrative is kind of all you have sometimes. So
yeah, it's good for self-reflection as well this time.
Yeah.
Having the choice of manufacturing what you want, why going with a fixed gear approach to the chainring at first?
Well, so like this all started in, like I said, like 2006. I started getting in with like a big kind of group of people, because Boston was like Boston and New England had like a really huge hand-built bike history. And also at the same time, like, kind of like messengers were like the Kings, Queens, and Boston had like a really big kind of messenger scene, and there were a lot of races going on, and there was like a really big cycling community, and it was just like it just like kind of felt a little bit different back then, but everyone was in on it, and there was a lot of it was just like it was the thing to do. It was like, oh, like all my friends were like frame builders or did something or other. My first big studio I had, I shared. It was like a huge warehouse, and I shared it with 2 frame builders were in there, so like Icarus and Royal H, and that building, like 20 or 30 years before, was like next door to the original Fat Chance building, and then downstairs in that building was one of the first locations of like Merlin Metalworks.
Okay.
And then like 3 blocks away was the I don't know if it was the original location, but it was the long-standing location for independent fabrication. And then like Ant is out here, and like it's like Geek House. It's just like everyone, like a lot of the people in that fixie scene, and it was like it was definitely like it has prevailed, but at that point it's like you had companies like Iro that were, I think it was like a guy on Staten Island or something. And this guy, he must have been just printing money. It's like he was making these like really simple fixed gear bikes, and they were really high quality, or not really high quality, but they were like pretty good quality. And they were like pretty much unmarked, and they were in every bike shop, and you could buy them online. And they were, it's just like you could be a person that was just making something for the kind of like fixed gear community, and doing well, so
Yeah.
And I think now it's kind of like evened out. It's like more distributed, like definitely like gravel bikes and mountain bikes and stuff are a little bit hotter. Track bikes are still, I mean, I'm very happy that they're still very popular. I'm a little surprised that like, it's like my, the number of, units that I produce each year has gone up, where I kind of thought that like, I don't make that many of the chain rings a year, so I thought that at a certain point it would just kind of be like something that people stopped buying. So, and the other thing is like I was never really able to scale them up because I always had manufacturing issues. So like 2014, 15, 16 probably would have been like enormous years for me, except for like I just couldn't get my manufacturing sorted out. So there was really like that's when I think like back to your kind of hype episode, I think that's when the hype kind of like started, because like really there were like very few of those chain rings out there because like I just like couldn't produce them, and it wasn't something I was doing on purpose.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my questions, because like you of course know that your rings they go fast. Everyone wants one. And you only do, from my my experience, you only do 1 or 2 runs each year of a few hundred or 100 or whatever. And yeah, I was curious if that's like a mix of wanting to keep a sense of boutique exclusivity, or if it's because of your manufacturing capabilities and not wanting to scale up. But like you said, now it's because of like manufacturing as well, right? Like
but originally it was, and now it's just kind of something where like I know that like I can do a run a year. I don't have to sit on a bunch of inventory. People are interested in them, and it's kind of like it's turned from an issue with manufacturing into kind of the business model, because like it's like to run a business that has inventory on the shelf all year round. It's a different kind of thing. It's like if I do it, I basically. I do customer service, and like I do all the fulfillment. I've worked with 9 machine shops over the years. So it's like, I guess that kind of comes back to like one other really important thing is that like with all the products that I make, that I don't 100% make in my own shop here, I'm not going to a chainring factory and saying, can you make me a chainring that looks like this? Like these products are designed totally from scratch. Like I design, engineer all the intricacies. I make engineering drawings that has like very tight tolerances on them for like how everything can be made, like, and it needs to be kind of quality controlled in that way. So, and that lets me kind of move from machine shop to machine shop and keep the product like pretty much like with no perceptible differences, so, or no perceived differences,
Yeah. So then the quality is really one of the most important factors then, because of all the work you put into the design.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So like the first ring then came out 2009, I believe.
2009 was when I was first. So actually, like now Tommy from Tommy Cycles, he approached me, and I think I'd already had a prototype of some rings I was playing around with, and he was like, "Oh, I really want to make more rings," and he was doing the 3R rings at that point. And so we were going to work on a project together, but then I think he decided more that he wanted to like focus on bikes, because he was doing sculpture work, and he went full time to make handmade bikes, and now he's like, one of the best in the world, So he was living around Boston at that time also, before he moved down to Austin. And then so kind of like when he made that decision, I was kind of like, well, maybe I'll just make a run myself, and then so that was like probably around 2010. And then I think I made like 30 or 60 rings, and then they kind of got picked up different places, and then like the next year I made like another like 60, and I think they first started selling for like $60, it was like, yeah. And then, I kept having issues, like we were talking about these manufacturing issues. I kept having issues where like, I'm always the lowest priority job in every machine shop's queue, because it's like, oh, I want like 200 of these or like 60 of these or whatever. And like, I don't know if it's like military or medical products that most US shops are working on, but they'll probably pay them like double time or time and a half to do projects that they want faster. Or like, maybe I'm just not like enough of a jerk to shops about like wanting to get something like right away, either way, how it worked out, like I'm okay with at this point. And so now I just kind of like focus on trying to get like one run a year, do it right. And then like, I also am really strict about who can sell them, just because like we were talking about earlier, maybe it was in the pre-show, like most brick and mortar shops are also online retailers. So it's like if I add a brick and mortar shop, they're really just competing with the other retailers that I've been working with for like 10 years, and it's like I don't really want to add competition to like these partners and friends that I've been working with, and because everyone's selling pretty much in the same marketplace. So I do encourage people to kind of like shop locally, in terms of like, if you're on the East Coast, order from King Cog. If you're on the West Coast, I got like, Retrogression, MASH, and Golden Saddle out there. It's like
rest of the world Blue Lug.
Yeah, and then the rest of the world Blue Lug. They're the best. They're my favorite.
So then compared to your first prototype then with Tommy Cycles, since then, how much has like the workload become easier to manufacture the same rings? Because they're not to say it wrong, but they're more or less the same like tooth profile and design, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of it is just coming down to like, the collaborations. Like the collaborations are a lot of work. I was working with one of my best friends had a letterpress printing shop, so we would work on all the packaging here, make all the packaging custom for each collaboration. So, so that was like, doing the logistics of that, getting all the colors figured out. But I think, like the biggest thing is really just kind of like lead times, just getting what you want when you want to get it from a shop that is like, I feel like every shop in the US is kind of like underwater with the amount of work that they're doing. And, it's like, it's really hard to get people to work for you and for people to show up and for those people to kind of like not continue to demand more and more money to work for you. It's like, it's just like kind of it's kind of an uphill battle on every front, I feel like. So
yeah, definitely.
like I could go and make these in overseas, like and have them on shelf all year round, and like
Nah.
I've thought about it, but it's just not it's
Yeah.
not what it is,
No.
like it's just not the thing, and it's not worth it to me.
Yeah, like I appreciate that, like the made in America and the quality and care that goes into them. That's why I'm willing to pay to have them shipped across the ocean and everything. So yeah,
Right.
that's it's a big selling point for me.
Yeah.
The cover for the collaboration you made with the Korean shop, Bikes Make
Oh.
Me Happy, is
So
so
they
pretty. It's so nice.
They did that one themselves.
Oh, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I
That's
was like,
why
oh,
it
you
doesn't
want me to
have
send
your
it?
pattern on it.
Yeah. So that's like super rare then, right?
Oh. So about like your production is limited, and the fact that you have collaboration, it makes things even more limited, right?
Yeah.
When we talked about chainrings on episode 2 and hide parts, we evoked the problem of resellers, eBay resellers that sells limited edition for crazy prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? Because it is pretty common to see AARN chain rings that goes for like $700, $800.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, like, I love it because I think it's funny, kind of, and I mean, I don't think it's funny because, like, I know that people are out there spending money to buy this, but I think that a lot of, like, I've heard from a bunch of people that some people just post that stuff and it doesn't actually sell, like, so I'm hoping that that's the case in some times, because, like, okay, here's one thing is that, like, if you want like a Sagino, like, big ring, you're paying like you were talking about that in episode 2, like it's like $200, it's like, I know that I could raise the prices here, but like it's kind of like one of these things where, like, I do want people to be able to have this product, and like I'll probably do a little price increase this year, but like it's just I don't know. I want it to be something that people can afford, and part of that is so that I continue to kind of like move them, but the other part is so that like people can get them if they want them,
Yeah.
and they do, like, they do wear out, and I don't really think it's fair for people to have to pay like a crazy amount of money to like replace this thing every year if they want to have something, it's just like, I don't know. So I guess I'm kind of torn on it, but it does make me kind of chuckle when I see that stuff, and it is kind of crazy. It definitely like adds to the hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be funny, like, if I was in the background doing that stuff, like I had all these accounts, and I was like,
just like keeping one or two on the side.
I'm gonna put this one up for like $700. Yeah.
It's like one of one prototype found randomly and like selling for 10,000. It's actually you, but
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is, like, there's French bikeaholic.
Oh, okay.
On Instagram.
Let's go.
And they have like probably everything I've ever made, and the funny thing about that is that, like, so like at a certain point I stopped keeping inventory of, like, I stopped keeping my archive, because I was like, okay, like, what is the value in keeping an archive? Like, it's just like, let me just get these out there, or like I would like keep one of everything, and then someone would be like, oh, I really need one of those, and I'd be like, oh, I have one, like, and I would just like give
Yeah.
it to them or sell it to them or whatever, and so like I stopped being really kind of hardcore about keeping the archive, and so like that person in France kind of has the archive at this point, which is like kind of
Yeah.
funny to me, because I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, if I ever wanted to like do like a show or something of them, I would have to like lease that collection from them or something, like, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, definitely, like, I have some customers that I'm like very grateful to for, continuing to support this kind of crazy project. It's like every year I'm kind of like, is this going to be like the year that like are people still going to be interested in this? Is it going to be, like something that's fun, and then also, as you said, like I've been making the same thing for so long, but it's kind of like these products got ripped off really early on. And the things that these companies ripped off, like, either overseas or in Europe, it wasn't the part that makes this a really good product, which was kind of funny to me. Because, like, the part that makes it a very well-performing product is all the stuff that you can't see. Yeah. It's the, like, thicknesses. It's the angles. It's, I have algorithms that generate all the tooth profiles, So it's like all the different size rings have the same, kind of spacing between the bushings, like everything, the way that the chain falls is the same. It's like there's just like a bunch of little stuff that went into it early on, and that's kind of like multiplies out through the different products over the years. So I realized that the only thing that I can really protect is the like look of that like 3 pattern cutout. Yeah. Like that kind of like 3 size rectangles cut. And so it just, kind of part of it is it like helped me define the brand language, like the design language of future products, which makes things a little bit easier because I know that like that's the thing that people can recognize, and that's what I do. So, it just like doesn't really like, I could do like a disc ring or like do a different cutout or something, but kind of it's like, but then someone would have to decide like, do they want the classic or something new? And it's like, I really can like own that cutout, and so I'll just, I was just like, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. It's not like, it's definitely not, it's not laziness, and it's not, kind of like because I don't think that I could change that. It's definitely a very intentional decision to stick with that pattern and that style,
Yeah.
Over the whole product category. Because I also have, I have track rings, which are definitely the most popular and have become even more popular, which is like I said, just crazy to me. And then I have, the 110 BCD,
direct mount.
Yeah, the 1X ones, which has like a really kind of interesting narrow wide technology in that too. And then I have the mountain ones, which are just kind of like something I do for fun at this point, because like I ride mostly mountain. So
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm old now, so it's like I don't really want to. Yeah. I don't want to be like on the streets.
That's why the 43T chainring, right?
Oh man, it's funny because like, okay, so I could watch, like, if I went back through my sales data, I could definitely see that like maybe like 2013, 2014, I could have made a 70 tooth ring and it would have flown off the shelves. But it's like, I don't know if the customer base is getting older or if people are just kind of like becoming more realistic about what they want to ride. Like they're like, oh, maybe like I don't like riding like a 53 tooth ring, like up hills,
Yeah.
But like the 47 tooth ring has gone from being, it was the most popular, it was the original. And then like 49 was most popular, then 51 was very popular, and then now we're back to 47, and then 43 is like, it's not as popular as the 47, but it's like, I don't know, like nobody can crush a hill like Kyle Kelly though, because like I went out to visit him in LA and like a few years ago, and he was riding a track bike, and I had like a fully geared like 12-speed road bike, and he crushed me like up those LA hills like on a 47 tooth track ring. Like I was just dusted, but I don't think that most people probably like, they don't want to ride like a 53 tooth ring, across town, it's just like
probably
maybe it's too
not.
Big,
No.
But
yeah. As we were saying it so many times on this show, 4917. The holy grail, the way to go.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think even the 49, like, because that was like a big thing, the 49, 4917 or 4916 or whatever, 15, whatever people were crushing. And it was like, but definitely now it's back to 47. So
yeah, you can feel that.
Yeah. If we're keeping track of the trends, smaller is the trend. So, like, maybe with brakes, I don't know. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, with everything possible. It's
yeah.
Yeah, like, I think like the chainring is really at the center, and then people just build around that. Often, just everything works. Uh, yeah, like I was like curious actually that on the topic of collaborations, since I'm guessing you approach the like King Kong and Retro that you want to collab with them, or do they approach you, or how?
Well, I think the funny thing is, I think that it was kind of like an unspoken thing. Like I started doing the collaborations. I forget who was the first one.
Roy.
Was it Roy, the pink one?
I could that was like the earliest I could find at least. But
yeah, that was crazy. That was really early. No, that was like 2015. Yeah. Anyway, I don't remember who the first one was, but it was kind of one of these things where like I never really offered it to anyone, and then it just started happening. Where it was like, oh, hey, could we like do a couple of these? I think that people are really kind of like walk on eggshells with me a little bit because they don't know like what I'm willing to do, so it's like, but I just guess I like hadn't really thought about it that much, and then it was kind of like, I have like 5 retailers right now for the most part. I have like 4, 1, 2, I have 4 in the States, and then Blue Lug are like my main ones, and then I kind of like, I've had Spellbound and Bike Makes Me Happy and Roy and like a couple little shops in like Manila and like little things like that, but it's like the little bit here, a little bit there. Every once in a while I'll get a retailer in Europe, but it's very rare.
yeah.
So it's just kind of like over time it was just kind of like everyone was like, hey, so like for next year, do you think we could like do maybe a little something like this? And I'm like, yeah, totally. Yeah, I just like I didn't think about it. Like yeah, you like, and it's like I don't know if like people were waiting for like an invitation or what, but it's like I don't know. It was just interesting. So now like I think all the shops that I work with have their own custom stuff coming out. So, which is fine. It's like that's like. I would much rather support their businesses since they do that. Like I do mine all year round, but they have employees, they have overhead, they have all stuff. Like if it went to the point where I was doing all my business with wholesale through them, I would be fine with that. It's like I'm not trying to be super greedy with this or anything. It's like I have a bunch of other stuff going on. So, but I do definitely like. Really, really appreciate the people who come out for me and who order product whenever, it's like that's, it makes me feel really good because it's something that I know that I'm able to provide directly to people and that they enjoy. And also the fact that I'm not trying to charge crazy amounts of money for it. I know that like, I'm hoping that people who get their hands on it are people who, are, maybe I don't mind when people are collectors, but people who are going to use them and who, like people all the time are kind of like, oh yeah, I'm getting paid next week. Like, can you hold one for me? And like, sometimes I will, like, it's like, and I know that those people are not those aren't collectors or those aren't people who are like, like sitting on a bunch of money and just trying to like gobble everything up to resell it. If someone's like, oh, I get paid like next Friday. Can you like hold one of these for me? It's like, that's like, I feel good about that. I'm like, yeah, I'll hold one. Like, it's like, so, but like, that's not an invitation. Like, do not email me about that. But what I'm saying though, it's like, there's a few different customers that I have and I appreciate all of them. But I like there to be a good balance between the different kinds of customers.
Yeah, like keep it accessible to as many people as possible, right?
Yeah, and I also try and sponsor and support as many people as I can. Definitely trying not to sponsor only white dudes. At this point, so which is tough in cycling also. So they're not tough, but it's the norm.
Definitely.
So, and it's like I feel like it's also sometimes it's just the loudest voices. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go find the person with like the most followers. Like I don't really reach out to people, but like I've started to be like, hey, if you ever want this, like I'm open to sending you whatever you want. So, because I don't really do a lot of marketing, so that's kind of, my retailers and also people who I send product to are the only people that. That's all that I really would consider marketing, so.
Yeah, I mean that's also a good approach. Then that there's a nice balance between like collectors and individual people, and then also like those that stand out that you consider like it's worth supporting them, right? Because yeah, like you said, the norm is really the white straight guy in cycling, and it's kind of a shame as well sometimes that other people are overshadowed. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. That, and also, and like, not to take away from that, but also like youth cycling stuff, because like, like if you're like just starting and you're trying to do something competitive, like especially competitive track racing at a young age, like I feel like there's just like so few people who are actually riding on a track. It's like if you get in touch with me and you're like, hey, I'm actually like racing on a track, or like, you got Seabase out in
Yeah.
Switzerland doing like the craziest stuff ever. It's like, dude, you can tell me that you want, I mean, white guy, but like I'm saying, like that dude is doing crazy stuff, so it's like, I'll send you whatever you want, man.
he's putting them to use, like really.
I know,
right? He's like, oh, what about I do the Tour de France, but fixed and breckless, and
Also
yeah,
blindfolded.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
But
It's like, you make me feel bad, man. I'm my trainer at home.
But yeah, like you said, it makes you feel good because I imagine, like you said, you put a lot of work into like the tooth profile and the algorithms and everything, so they do deserve to be written properly as well. But
Yeah.
you can definitely ride them for a long time because, I mean, I got one not from the first batch, but pretty early on, and it's still riding really good. I don't know how many Ks I put on it. I just can't know, but it still runs smooth. And you know what? I don't need to change it. I end up getting one pretty much every batch because of limited or something that I could use. But yeah, I have one from the really beginning, my first one. It's still good. I'm probably never gonna give up.
yeah,
Is that a 6061 aluminum one, like the
Yeah.
older ones? Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, like, part of the reason why I switched from 6061 to 7075 was just because, like, at the price that I was trying to go for, like, I really was just like, I need to make it out of a higher quality aluminum, like a better aluminum for this particular application. But like these, like, especially track rings are so overbuilt, they're designed for like a ton of load, so, 6061 or 7075, like I wouldn't really expect you to see a difference. Like, but in like when I was doing prototyping in the narrow wide stuff, it's a totally different deal. Like, you need to have the best quality material on narrow wide because like those tiny teeth are like taking a huge amount of load, and they, a softer material wears differently, different tempers, like all that stuff is like a huge thing to consider. Speaking of technology, like I do have some stuff that I'm trying to release this year that's totally new technology, and that's I have a new coating that I've developed that is like a hard coat that also is impregnated with Teflon, and so it's something that I'm trying to release. It's part of this like Pro series that'll be coming out in like June, I think.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And that's like a kind of this different gray color. It'll have different packaging if I can get it together, but that's kind of like along the same lines. Like I'm always kind of trying to think of ways to like, it's literally like reinventing the wheel. It's like, do I want to make oval chain rings? It's like, I don't really, I think there's a lot of people out there who have built their business around like oval chain rings or making a chain ring for every kind of bike out there. There's like other US manufacturers that are doing like trying to be everything to everyone, and it's like I really don't want to try and be everything to everyone. That means holding a lot of inventory. It means like, kind of like having a lot more stuff to babysit, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
Like now with the new thing, the new Pro series, this is like a new experiment for you, I guess, right? Kind of.
Yeah, and I can kind of afford to do that too, because like, like with the 4323 release, it's like that was something, that ring I originally made for myself on my like 30th birthday, because I was like, I'm an old man now, like, and so 7 years ago, it's like I'm an old man now. I need, like, to take care of my knees, and it was kind of like a joke product, and that's where the original red, white, and blue camo came from, because I was like, I'm gonna make this like stupid looking ring, and it's gonna have this like totally overblown camo on it, and it's just gonna be like silly, because like a lot of stuff just starts as like a joke between you and your friend, So it's always like, I was like, I'm gonna like make this ring, it's gonna say retire at 30 on it for my 30th birthday, and I'm just gonna like
Sell it.
And then like I was like a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm gonna re-release that thing, and it's like crazy popular now.
Yeah.
So
It is.
But then it's like, okay, what do I do next? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I want to focus on something else for a minute. And like, I've been thinking a lot about that, because I'm just like, there's these companies like Paul and Phil and White, that are like really, really amazing U.S. manufacturers that do a little bit of everything, and they do a really, really good job. And so I'm not really trying to like be them. I'm trying to like kind of like cut my own path. Like, I don't want to like make brake levers. I don't really, like, there's a bunch of stuff I could do, like, seat post collar, like things like that I've thought about, but it's kind of like just not me. So, it's just, I've got something in the works for this year. It's pretty different. But I don't really know, it's like, I don't know. Do I even consider myself like a bicycle parts company, or or what is it? It seems like these are kind of like the passion projects of my design firm, and things that I decide to produce, and I just like want to make what I want to make when I want to make it. So, and I also make things that I want to ride. So like I started, first the track bikes, and I made track rings, and then like as I moved up to like a place in upstate New York, I had a lot more hills. I started riding a lot more road bikes, so I made the narrow wide 110 BCD rings, and then like, as I started to get more into mountain biking, I made mountain bike rings. So really I'm just making what I want to ride, and then I'm hoping that people kind of get in on that, so and I hope that gives it kind of like a level of kind of like clarity and intention, where I'm not trying to like, we were talking in the pre-show about like hopping on trends, and like, are you hopping on a trend, or at a certain point, if you have hopped on a trend, you can also decide to just like fully own that thing. It doesn't have, you don't have to feel like a sellout, or that you bought into something like forever, so, but I hope to avoid kind of like seeming like I'm hopping on things by keeping it as stuff that like I personally ride, or I personally use, or I want.
Yeah,
so
that keeps it
kind of
like within your own bubble then, kind of, as well then. It's
yeah. Because ideally you're your own customer,
Yeah.
And like that's how you understand your customer, is by being your customer, so.
And yeah, you've made quite like eclectic assortment of bike parts. I saw in history, in like a bike rack, seat post topper, and chain rings, and rack, yeah. So it's quite
and then
all over the place.
And then like I have like some clients here and there, like our friends also, like Jason from Affinity. So we did the carbon fiber tire levers, and that was like an insane project. So insane.
Those are so nice.
Well, it was like, literally like, hey, I want to make these things, like, will you design them? And also, by the way, I want to make them in my like, 200 square foot warehouse in Brooklyn. And I have zero history of manufacturing anything or running a factory. And I'm just like, dude, this is craziness, like, and I tried to talk him out of it for like probably a year, even though we had already designed a lot of stuff. I was like, I don't know, man, do you even want to do this? Like, do you want to make these? And he actually like, now he's got like 2 guys running 2 shifts or something. And, they're just pumping him out in his little shop. And I'm like super proud of him, cause like, it's like, I want to poke holes in things, and I want to be like, oh, you're not going to be able to do this. Or like, have you ever run a factory before? It's like, kind of like, maybe it's like you're a human, like panic response to being like, oh, do you even want to do this? Like, do you even care? Like, like, I don't know. So yeah. Are you sure? Let me talk you off this ledge, like, don't make the mistakes I made, son, or something. I don't know. So,
Trust me, you don't want to do this.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we designed like, like all of the way that the layups happened. I designed molds, I designed the parts. Like I went down to Brooklyn, I programmed all the CNC machines. Like it's like crazy. Like we developed like all the finishing processes. Like those parts are made like 100% in one little shop. It was crazy. Like I worked with them on the package. Like it's just, and it was cool because like that's the kind of stuff that I do. Like my glasses are like that, where it's like everything happens in my own little space. And like one thing about like all of my products is kind of like we were talking about before. Like I don't go to like a chainring factory and I say, hey, I want this chainring with like this cutout on it. Like I don't go to a glasses factory and say, hey, I want this glasses with like in this look. It's like everything from scratch up is done, in-house.
Yeah.
And like when I bring on a new shop to do chain rings for me, like they look at these parts and they're like, oh man, this is going to be like really expensive because like it just looks like a crazy, crazy intricate part. Like you have to like teach them, like these are the things you have to be concerned about. These ones you don't. Like, it's like, and that's kind of the language of an engineering drawing, is telling someone like, here's what you need to pay attention to. These things you can kind of ignore a little bit. Like this is aesthetic and this is functional,
Yeah.
So, and like, it's like, I think that that's kind of like, if I had to make an argument for why people would pay more for something, it's because like, you're not just going to a factory and picking something out of a catalog and saying, I want it to look like this. Like there's a lot more work that goes into
not just a template.
designing something from scratch, but it's also like so much more satisfying, when you could say like, hey, every single aspect of this is something that like I intentionally decided to do, and like I've checked it all out, and I think that the results you will be pleased with, so
yeah. And so it's like since the first ring you've made, have there been like any big like developments in manufacturing that let you do new things, or has it mostly like stagnated? Or
well, so one big thing, and it was kind of like something that wasn't totally intentional on my side, was that we switched over from the machines being totally, or the parts being totally milled, to like basically they get turned down first, so they get put on a lathe after they get water jet cut, and then they get milled. So basically like the surface finish of the parts is like being turned down to like a very specific thickness, and the finish is like much better. So that, I think that, and switching over to 7075 T6 aluminum was like a big move, because like it's hard to find new materials, like it's hard to get things. Like
especially
I had a
now,
shop
I heard.
like yeah, definitely, like I pre-order material very early. Like sometimes a lot of my lead time, like it takes like 6 months for me to get a run of chain rings, so it's like, and that includes like material lead time, it includes anodizing, it's like yeah, and like all the anodized patterns, like all the camos and everything, those are all like applied by hand. Like I work with the shop really closely. I've been out to visit them a bunch, and like they, there's a guy who like specializes in these patterns, and they have first article samples of everything that I've done. I work with them on all the colors. Like, it's just like, the process involves a lot of people, who are very, very good at their job, and that makes me feel good too, is to support them. Like, I've thought a bunch about like, oh, what if I just like brought machines in and did it all myself? But it's like, I don't want to be running a machine shop every day necessarily.
No.
Like I want to be running a machine shop for like certain things when I want to, but I also like couldn't justify having a machine like that. It just wouldn't run enough, So it's like my buddy Ian, who's in Philly, who makes pens and also Slam That Stem and watches.
Oh, I got that recently.
Yeah. Oh, you got Slam That Stem? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ian does that, and Sean design pens, and then Sean horology watches. Like he moved from Boston to Philly, and ended up he has like a handful of Swiss machines now, and is doing all of his manufacturing in house, and it's like incredible to see, but it's also like, it's a commitment to one of his family of products that like, I don't know if I've ever felt like I was ready to make that commitment, like it's just kind of like, I would have to have a larger product line and know that I could justify it. You know, right now it's something that's fun for me, and I guess like part of it is like I'm afraid of like losing the fun. You know, if I had to like really, really
Yeah, like
double down on a lot,
Yeah.
you know.
that's how you like.
And
lose
I'm
the
sure
passion.
Ian still has a lot of fun. Yeah, it's how you lose a passion, you know. And it's like that's what I guess that's kind of like one of my biggest fears is like losing the passion and doing something like once a year. I know I can like, or twice a year, like, you know, because I do different styles throughout the year. It's like I know that I can like maintain the passion. People are excited about it. Like, I hope that everyone can get what they're looking for, you know, and all the shops I work with are happy. And then I know that the next year I'm like, you know, when I'm planning it out, that people are gonna, you know, be ready to do it again. Whereas if I had it on shelf all the time, you know, it would just be like, I don't know, it just wouldn't be special.
Yeah.
So I guess, okay, there's a little bit of intentional thing to the hype, but like, I don't know if I could even get product faster, you know? Like right now, like I said, it takes 6 months to do a run of rings. So it's like, how many runs can you do a year if it takes 6 months? Like, pretty much one.
So that's also like the
Yeah.
limitation
Like-
of having those like the more specialized machinery, right? If you can only get the material every 6 months, then it's not even worth it in the first place.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, but then, you know, I also do all the quality control, inspection,
Mm.
and packaging here, and I do all the fulfillment from my own shop too. So, and I enjoy doing that. You know, it's like one of my favorite days is like the day after a big sale, you know, and I like sit down, I like put some music on really loud, and I like pack up everybody's orders and print out labels, and then I like, you know, go to the post office or have somebody come pick it up, and it's just like that's a really fun day for me because it's like I get to see like all the stuff going to all these people that are excited about it, you know. So
all the
Yeah,
tags on
the
Instagram.
feeling of achievement, right?
yeah, it's achievement, but it's also like, you know, like I said, being able to provide stuff to people.
Yeah.
You know, like have that connection, you know.
You mentioned that you're releasing a pro lineup this June, but for the main lineup of the AARN rings, since you've more or less perfected like the tooth profile and the like the general base model of it, is whenever you do a run nowadays, do you find enjoyment in like the aesthetic? Sorry, the aesthetic, like the color combinations, or just by manufacturing the ring itself, like the metal and everything?
I mean, like, I'm still pretty pleased with it, you know, which I guess is like,
A good thing.
it's not like I look at the, yeah, I guess I, you know, I don't like look at them when I see them online and stuff. I'm like, God, you know, I wish I was a little different, you know, like I kind of at this point barely remember the process of designing those cutouts. Like I remember like Ian Sutton from Icarus Frames and I were sitting in my old studio in Somerville, Massachusetts, and I had like all these printouts of all different cutouts, and I had been like kind of drawing on them with marker and stuff, and I was like showing them. I was like, I think I kind of want to do this one. I think he was like, yeah, that looks all right. You know, it's like it was like, you know,
The
and then
same
like, you know, was it like 11 years later or something, and you know they're still going, and I guess I'm kind of like, I don't know, like maybe. I don't know. Sometimes you're like, maybe I have a good eye for this or something, you know. But like, it's not all the time. I don't feel like that, you know. But like, I like it. Like, it makes me feel good to design things. I like designing stuff, so I'd hope that I'm okay at it. So,
And it's still definitely going strong, though. It's not stopping anytime soon, I feel.
yeah. Well, with the pro thing, I'm hoping to have a couple little extra secret things going on with it. Little,
Okay, we'll keep this on the
bonus
wraps.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to let it all out, you know? It's like I was saying, like, also we were talking in the pre-show for a second. It's like I kind of exist in this gray area where I'm like, not, you know, it's like not like Bicycling Magazine is knocking down my door trying to talk to me or anything. Like, I kind of like, I don't really have my real name out anywhere. Like, I don't feel like people really know who I am. Like, there's like, they understand that this product comes from somewhere and they kind of know a little bit about it, but like, I don't have like a huge following or anything, you know. It's just kind of like, I feel like people maybe don't make the connection between me or my business and those rings even necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, and it's not something I've done intentionally, but like I just exist in this weird space that's kind of like part industry outsider, and so I feel like, maybe some industry kind of like there's a little bit of pushback against me, and then maybe some outsider industry there's a lot of support for me. I don't know. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like my sweet spot for like anything that I work on, which is like I kind of want to like, I hate the word disrupt, but I kind of want to do a little bit stuff that's like starting from zero and not necessarily like looking at other products to see why they did things, and doing it from scratch, and then kind of seeing what ends up happening with it and kind of what the response is to it, and then that also like, being given certain limitations, like, oh, I don't have access to like a chainring factory. I don't have access to like all the vendors for all the different eyewear stuff and components that I would need access to. It puts you like these limitations basically like end up creating a product that's unique because the processes that are used to make them are custom to you, and like I think that I like products that are kind of process driven. So
Yeah. As a last question, because we already like blown out the timing, but it is totally okay. See, one run a year is the thing right now. What can we expect in the future from AARN transmission? I feel like the chainring thing is still going so strong, and there's so much more possible available, right? But what can we expect?
I mean, I guess without kind of letting the cat out of the bag too much, you can expect to see some kind of thing that's like a cross-discipline collaboration between many of my different interests happening
Okay.
through the cycling company, like, and the transmission company is definitely like, that's cycling specific, and I've done a lot of other products, but I feel like kind of this thing that I'm working on it's like a collaboration between like all of my different past and present businesses. So and like we've talked before, I don't really, unless somebody wanted to collaborate on something that was like a different kind of product, which I keep asking shops. I'm like, oh, like the shops I work with, I'm like, oh, do you ever like want this or want that? Like, because I don't want to just like make something and then like out of nowhere and have people be like, why do you make that? Like, so it'd be nice to like have the support of a shop on something if it was going to be like total outlier. But yeah, I have an idea of how I'm going to diversify, and I'm hoping that people are into it. So
Yeah, definitely.
a little bit of hint, but yeah, guess you'll have to find out later. If you listen to this podcast like in a year or two, well, you'll know. But
yeah, I mean, if I can pull it off, it's like I'm pretty confident in myself when I like commit to something. But like with any of this stuff, like any of these huge projects, it's like, there's something could happen and it doesn't happen. Like a little change in the wind. Like,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the money doesn't exist, or like something goes sideways with a vendor, or with a design doesn't pan out, or I'm not happy with what's going on, and then it just goes back into the folder of things that were tabled. There's a lot of stuff in that folder, but yeah, I don't know. I have to keep it simple.
Yeah, only time will tell then, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry we strayed so much. I feel like I was just kind of like rambling about things.
No, it's completely fine. Well, I guess this is pretty much all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Aaron, for
thank you
being
for
on the
joining
show
us
today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun. It's fun to talk about things, So
Everything we talked on the show can be found in the show notes on the Slow Spin Society website. Where can you find us? Well, you can find Aaron, of course, on his personal Instagram and your website, I guess.
yeah.
You can email the show if you have any question at slowspinpodcast@gmail.com. I am on Instagram @_Paul_U. And you can find us also on the Discord server. The music for the show is Lovely Swindler by Maria, and the illustration is by @JulietJoe on Instagram. You can support the show by giving us a good review on the platform of your choice. It's really up to you, but the best way is really to just poke a friend in the arm and say, hey, do you know AARN rings? Well, if you want to know more, you should probably listen to that podcast. If you want to have access to the extended cut of the podcast, you can visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/slowspinsocietypodcast. And as I said before, pledging at any level will grant you access to the pre and after show, which is around 40 minute, probably more this week, of extra content per episode. And
Sorry.
No.
no, it's fine.
Okay, so yeah, see you guys next week.
Yeah, see you guys next week. Bye bye.